Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the News Behind the News with Ralph Cantava on Mix 94.7 FM. And thank you for joining us for today's program. Today we're going back into the field of sports. So far we've had quite a bit of our local athletes who have been on the program talking about their experience being in sports and so forth. And I have here with me Mr. Akeem Lewis. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to you, Akeem, and thanks for being on the program.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, man.
Okay,
Thanks
great.
for the invite. Let's get into it.
Yes, for sure. So I know you as a coach in Muay Thai kickboxing, but I know you're also quite diversified in the fighting sports specifically. But so before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and we move on from there?
Yeah, so I was born in Georgetown, Guyana. My parents came here, and then I followed after. I finished high school at St. Martin Academy.
Good job.
I really got into fighting from a friend of mine who was a classmate. I just overheard him talking about he has to go to training. I was like, you got to go to training. What training do you have to go to? And his name is Kadim Joseph.
Oh,
and,
I didn't know Kadim used to fight.
Yeah. And he told me that he has to go to kickboxing. I was like, okay, where is this kickboxing? And at the time I was living in Phillipsburg, and Marco was training pretty much like a few steps away from where I was living at. I was like, I'm there. So I showed up, and then I just never left. I kept coming. I kept training. I loved it. I loved the idea of always improving. There's always something to work on. Mm-hmm. And I just kept showing up. I drove my way into competing, or I would say I was like, swindled into competing, kind of. Because when Marco sees that you have potential, he pushes you.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And he doesn't ask you, like, do you want to compete? You're going to compete, pretty much. So, and then I had a knack for it. I was winning fights, and then I just kept going.
Gotcha.
After that, a couple of years, I was working at a restaurant. I was working at Top Cart. I don't know if you know Top Cart.
Yeah.
Phenomenal restaurant. And my coach approached me and said, we have this teaching opportunity that Melissa Bartfield was opening or expanding her gym. So I went there, and bless you. I was doing. She wanted to introduce kickboxing to her schedule. Mm-hmm. So I started teaching kickboxing there, and I've been teaching now for about 7 years.
Wow.
And man, it's just something that I always say yes to things, and I just get into it, and I get really deeply into it and passionate about it, and then I just grow and get better, and then I've been teaching now for a long time. I compete also. Mm-hmm. I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Melissa Bartfield. I'm a brown belt currently. And, that's pretty much all about, that's me. That's my life. It's all I do. I teach and train. I don't really do much else other than play Call of Duty. That's
cool.
It's not much else that I do.
Cool. Well, one of the things that stand out to me is even as you talk about how you get started is your hat.
Yeah.
Naruto, right?
I'm a big Naruto fan.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
My dream is to become Hokage.
That was a big influence as I was coming up. I was like, I got to move like that. It's not possible to move like that, but I can try to move like that,
Yeah. I've always enjoyed Naruto because the overall morale.
Yeah.
It's
just
like
the mindset of it.
Correct. And I think those are the type of lessons that give young people or even adults.
Yep.
Those of us who are old and still watch it. Understanding of what it is to overcome, but also remain determined in accomplishing a goal.
Yeah.
I always tell people like, hey, you gotta watch Naruto.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a cartoon,
it's not just
but
for kids.
Yes, exactly.
I think most anime is not for kids because the things that they mention and talk about and discuss, you gotta have like an adult mind to kind of grasp it. As a kid, you're like, you don't really understand what they're saying, but as you grow, you're like, oh, damn, this is what it means to be determined.
And the philosophy.
When things don't work out and go your way, then you start really getting into it.
Gotcha.
So I love anime. I don't care what nobody says.
Yeah, likewise. So one thing that comes to mind, for me is you got started when, in high school, and you've stuck with it, you committed to that. So how has that help you, but also help shape even your mindset, as a man and growing into adulthood?
Yeah, sticking to things is really important. If you ever want to get good at anything in life, it doesn't happen in 1 year. Doesn't happen in a week. You've really got to stick to it. That's one of the big things I try to teach my kids, not my personal kids, but my kids' classes.
I got you. Yeah.
And I'm starting to feel like I got to also teach that to the adults. Because it's, like I said, I was mentioned to you off air, it's difficult to train when you don't have something to finish your training. You know, like if you have to compete in 6 months, you know you're kicking your butt to get to that 6 months because there's an end goal. Now, mostly for fighters, we don't really know when we're going to fight. Like I had a fight recently and that was 2 weeks notice. You know what I mean? So you don't know when that opportunity is going to come. Sometimes you do. You have time to think about it, to see it coming. So I don't know, man. I think for me personally, I know that in order for me to get good, I have to be determined. I have to keep at it. You know what I mean? If I'm playing a game, again, I have to relate to the people. If I'm playing a video game, the first level is relatively easy, and that last level is the hardest level. But you can't jump from the first to the last. Like you got to go through the whole thing to develop the skills, the movement. So I kind of see that as my life. Like I'm not at the end yet, and I'm still going through it all. But I got to just keep going. I just got to keep going. I can't just wake up and be good. You know?
Yeah,
like people would come into the gym and train with me. Like, how long have you been training? And I'm telling them I've been training for 12 plus years. I've been teaching for 6.5. It doesn't come easy. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, you're so good, you're fast, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, this took time. You know, there was a time when I was not good at all.
Yeah,
and I still, in my head, I'm not good because that's my mentality that I need to keep training, keep doing better. It's hard to relate and to get people to grasp that, but I'm still working on it.
I understand, you know, because whenever you excel in your field, what you do seems so simple that it's like water. And especially when you know that you can achieve greater. And because of that, you know, you may apply pressure on yourself, but to others, they're like cheerleaders, like, yeah, you got this, man. This is, you're the greatest of all time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I don't like when people tell me that.
I got you. Yeah, because, you know, you don't want to put a cap on yourself.
Yeah.
I feel you. I feel you on that. So, yeah.
Like, oh, you're so, I'm not there yet, man. Don't gas me up. You know?
Yeah. Just getting started. No, of course, but at the same time, you know, I guess it's that balance between humility and ambition. Yeah, you know. Yeah,
for sure.
So one thing I'm curious about, if you could definitely express in detail, is what is it like? What is it like preparing yourself for a fight?
It's grueling. It's not easy. There's this thing called fight camps, right? When you got to fight, you have 6 weeks, you get ready for the fight. But for me, I'm kind of always in fight camp because I'm always training. I'm always, in my head, I'm always preparing for a fight. So it's not easy, right? I train about 3 times a day. I wake up, I have my morning session. I go home, I have my breakfast, I go to strength training, I go back, I teach from 3 o'clock, then I have my last session for the night, and I go home. And that's pretty much every day. It's not easy, it's tiring on the body, but your mental toughness is usually what pushes you past it all. Most people would break. Like, it's funny that we have, I did my fight, came back, and then one of my students wanted to feel what it felt like to train for a fight. And I was telling her, it's like, you know, it's not easy. It's tough. She's like, yeah, I want to know what it feels like. And she did she did a week starting from last Monday. And then today she comes to the gym. She's like, oh, I'm so tired. My body hurts. I'm like, that's what it is. Yeah. And that's just 1 week. So it's not easy, man. Once you're mental, first in training, the first thing we like to do from my coach is we like to build mental toughness. Once we see that you're mentally tough, we can push you beyond limits, and it's easy, but that's hard to build into people. But fight camp it's tough. You train pretty hard from Monday to Saturday. You rest on Sunday. You go back at it again on Monday, and it's pretty much at least minimum twice, 2 sessions per day, a morning and evening session. And that's pretty much it. If you're training kickboxing, primarily you're doing only striking, boxing, clinch, standing clinch. If you're doing MMA, it vastly expands. you're doing wrestling, you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're doing wall work, and you're striking, and you also have to do strength training. It's quite a lot.
Gotcha. And so I'm curious about one thing you just said, and that is what goes into the mental training.
It's tough. I think for some people it's different, but I can only speak about me because I know me. It's just that I know what I want to do. I know how far I want to take this sport, how far I would like to go in this sport, and that alone drives me. I know that I want to change the lives of my family members. I want to change my life. And I know it's not easy, And I think going deeper into it, man, you just gotta want to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want to be better, you're always gonna like settle for less. Like if we're doing a 5-minute round and you get tired in the second minute, you're like, I think I did enough. You know what I mean? You start pulling back and accepting it. Whereas for me, you're like, man, this is it? How am I tired? I need to be better than this. If I'm sparring and we got to do 5 rounds and you hit me once in that 5 round, I'm upset at myself because you touched me once. And that's just how I am. Some people are like, he just hit me once. I hit him like 100 times. I think that's good enough. I don't settle for that. So in my head, my mental toughness is I don't settle.
Gotcha.
That's what it is for me.
Gotcha. Listening to you reminds me of several interviews of Kobe Bryant that I've listened to. While I'm not an athlete, I don't like sports, but
just talking about it. You're big.
Do a little lifting here and there, But I've always admired just his mindset. Anyone who's successful in the route, their worldview, and with Kobe, as you said, like I remember he would often talk about ensuring that he would be the first person on the court, and even so if practice starts at 5, he's there from 3, and even after practice when everyone goes, he's still going.
That's usually how it is here for me too, man. I'm the coach, so I am there before everybody else, but I'm always doing work before class. I'm always doing work after class. I don't know, that's the Mamba mentality that he talks about. It's hard to translate that to people. You either get it or you don't get it.
Correct. Because like in one interview in particular, I did like what he said when he realized, in terms of the conversation of being the greatest basketball player ever, his bottom line was like, it's kind of hard to judge. So it should rather be being the greatest version of himself. But also realizing the another greater benefit, which is to not just score the most points, but how can you make yourself great so you can make others great.
I like that. I like that because it ain't, I can get to the toppest level, but like there's people that are there with me, my training partners, and I also want them to get to the toppest level. So like every big event that I would go to, I would like talk to my manager like, hey, I got a guy here, and he's just as good as I am, and like, so I feel that. But it's difficult, man, because
for sure.
You know what I mean? Because you have that mentality, you have that drive, and it's hard to have other people kind of grasp that drive also. And I'm like, for my last 3 years, I've seen it that I would put so much into training someone, and then I wouldn't see that drive, that personal drive. You know what I mean? Like and now I've developed where I'm like, if you show me that drive, I'll meet you. I'll be right there with you on the road, and I'll push you just as much as you push yourself. But I need to see it first. I'm not gonna like be behind you every day, calling you. You know what I mean? That takes away from me. So I kind of want to see it first, and then I'll push you to the top as far as we can go.
Gotcha. So one of the things, of course, in a sport like yours that I've always thought about is how do you settle with pain? Like, do you overcome pain or do you embrace it?
That's that mentality again. You know what I mean? You when you're in that moment, even when you're sparring, I think sparring it's different because you'll get hurt and you're like, okay, this is not a fight. I don't need to like be blocking it out, even though I do it even when I'm sparring. But the pain part, you already know that you're gonna get hurt. Something is gonna hurt. Even when you're winning, you're hurting. Like in my fight, I barely got touched, even though I lost. I kicked the crap out of this guy's leg, and my foot's all swollen. But in the fight, I'm not really thinking about that. I'm just like, okay, land my shots, hit my shots, move. I'm thinking about technique, and that kind of takes over the pain side. Because if you relish in that pain feeling, you're not thinking about your technique. You're not thinking about what your opponent is doing, how you need to move, closing the angles, changing. So you learn quickly that you can't think about the pain. You can think about it after, but while this is all happening, you kind of have to block it out. That's where that happens. You'll see like brutal fights, man. Guys are getting elbowed and cut up, and they look like they're about to die. You know, those guys are just there, like their eyes are focused because they gotta block it out. If you don't, let it take over, and then that's when it goes against you.
So, which of the fighting styles do you have a preference for?
I love striking.
Okay.
I love striking. I love kickboxing and boxing, Muay Thai. I like that. But I'm also starting to love grappling also because, in MMA, you have to be good at both. If you're just a striker, somebody's going to take you down, and then, that's pretty much it. You can't do much. So you have to love everything. You might be really good at one thing, but you have to, you have to be kind of good at grappling. You have to be kind of good at jiu-jitsu.
Arsenal.
Yeah. Maybe you're going to be really good at one discipline, but you got to spread it out.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be a one-dimensional fighter, and that's easy to beat.
Yeah. Because my next question for you, based on that, is what is your approach or take on developing your strengths and weaknesses? Like, how do you guard yourself? Just knowing, you may have blind spots and stuff, but
got you.
Which one do you lean on more?
The first thing is isolating and knowing what your weaknesses are. So watching tape, watching sparring videos, watching old fights to see what your weaknesses are. And then what I like to do is I like to spend a lot of time working on those weaknesses. So let's say if I have pretty good striking but not that much grappling, instead of doing striking 5 times a week, I'll scale it back and do striking twice a week and then do grappling 3 times a week. So if I'm working more on my grappling, it will improve. If I'm doing more striking and grappling, you're going to kind of be the same. So I like to always put more time into the weak areas or whatever I need to improve on. I'll put more time into that and kind of scale back my grappling or my strength training. Because if those areas are pretty solid, I need to put more time and invest more time in the weaker side of what I need to get better at.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the news behind the news with Ralph Cantav on Mix 94.7 FM. I'm joined with Akeem Lewis, an MMA fighter and a coach as well. And my question for you, Akeem, is kind of based on having just watched Cobra Kai and and Karate Kid and stuff. On the basics of Mr. Miyagi, the wax on, wax off. And I say that because, I'm curious about, for you, what are the essentials that, no matter what, those so-called basic skills come in handy every time?
Skills. I kind of hold respect as a skill. You know what I mean? It's kind of strange, but respect is a skill. If you can walk into a room and be respectful, that's a big thing already. And that's an incredible asset to have. An adult, a kid, doesn't matter who you are. Another thing is you have to learn how to control your ego. You have to learn how to be the master of your ego. There's too many stories of guys walking into a gym and thinking they're the ish, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then some smaller 20-pound person puts them on their butt, and then their ego gets the best of them, and they're trying to go crazy and hurt somebody. It's too many of it. You could be boxing with like a really good guy and you touch him once in the nose, you're like, oh, impossible. And then you get, your ego is an incredible thing, and if you let that control you, it can be detrimental to your improvement in martial arts. So we have this thing that when you walk into the gym, you leave your ego at the door because you want to improve. You're also not here to hurt anyone. You're here to get better. You're here to improve in your skill. I think those are the two main skills that somebody should have. You might think I would say, oh, you got to be fast or powerful. I think all those things will come later. But respect and controlling your ego, highest on my list.
So the internal work.
Yeah, I think that's bigger. External, we can get there.
That's
you
true.
know what I mean? Like, some of the craziest people in the world can be really good fighters.
Mm-hmm.
But they could be really disrespectful. Their ego can get the best of them, and then you go in a training room and they're knocking everybody out. And nobody wants to train with them because this guy's ego is just too much.
I find it interesting you said that because, one of the things I've learned in life is there's strength in being humble.
Yeah, man.
And reason being is because your natural, based human, animalistic, whatever response may be to go ahead and have some sort of contention, right? But it takes strength to decide on what I will subside my feelings for a greater cause or greater good, but also to extend turn another cheek, not in an actual fight, but you know what I mean. It not because it comes the way you're trained, especially as a man, is like that is weakness, but it takes more courage.
I don't think that's weak at all. That's strong. I don't want to say that. It sounds weird, but it's easy to pull a trigger, and when you're upset, it's really easy to just boom. When you're upset, it's difficult to be like, okay, and just walk away. That's tough. That's so tough. So I think I hold respect and ego top of the chain, man.
Cool. So that's it. Do the internal work first.
Yeah.
So one of the things that come to mind, like sports like kickboxing, karate, etc., they often get a bad rap, for being seen as violent or even gruesome. So what is your take on that? And also, how would you address whether it's a parent, who is concerned with having their child, sign up to partake in
martial artists are some of the nicest people in the world. They're some of the most humble and calm individuals that you'll ever meet. They're also some of the most deadly people out there. But I think having a good coach and a good set of people around you that feeds you the right, keep you on that right mindset. Because you can go to a gym and the coach is really aggressive and he's like, kill, kill, kill. And that's all you're going to have. I think Cus D'Amato with Mike Tyson was great because Cus was training him to be a killer. And many interviews, you would listen to Mike Tyson. He says, yeah, Cus told me I need to be a killer. And every time I went in there, I was thinking about killing and blah, blah, blah. And in his later years, he's much more humble now. He's much more calm down. Mm-hmm. He says he looks at his old fights and he doesn't know that person.
Yeah.
So I think a coach is incredible. That's why I'm so thankful for Mark London, who's my coach, because he teaches you how to use your aggression, but also how to control it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I try to do with my students. And also, like, if you're a parent and you're bringing your kid to me, the first thing I let parents know is your kid's gonna learn respect. He's gonna learn how to be disciplined. He's gonna learn it the hard way, or he's gonna learn it the easy way.
Yeah.
But he's gonna learn respect, and he's gonna walk out of here a different person. It's going to take time, of course, with anything, but martial arts will change your life. If you let it and stick with it, it'll change your life. It changed my life. I think I was an angry youth, but today I'm like my most. It's a simple saying, but carries a lot of weight for me. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. Things happen in your life. It is what it is. I'll learn from it and I'll move forward, but I don't let it get to me. I don't get angry at it. So I think, if I had to, speak to somebody about martial arts, like the two most thing that it's going to teach you is it's going to teach you how to be extremely disciplined and respectful, and it's just going to make you a master of your emotions.
I like that. That's cool. So one thing that I guess I've been curious about is the ranks as far as belt colors are concerned. I don't know how long that would, if it's complex or not, but can you explain that a bit?
I'm only really familiar with the belts in jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
As for like taekwondo and those things, I don't really know because I've never really. I always train for skill. I don't really train for a rank or to be a certain level. That's not me. But
Okay,
for
gotcha.
kickboxing, there is no rank. For Muay Thai, there is no rank. You train, you earn your skill. You step in the ring, you gain knowledge, and then you want to pass that knowledge down to the younger generation, and you start teaching. Some people go that route, some people don't. For jiu-jitsu, you start as a white belt, and you move all the way up to a black belt. In between, there is white, blue, purple, brown, and black. Typically takes you about 10 years to become a black belt. And then after a black belt, there's still other stripes. There's a coral belt, there's the red belt, and apparently the red belt, only the Gracie family members are allowed to wear red belt. I could be wrong in that story.
Oh, okay.
Again, I don't go too deep
I got
into
you.
the belt system.
It's not
as,
about the title, so to speak, I guess.
For the kids, man, they want that.
Of
They
course,
want that color,
yeah.
kids. But I train for skill. I think there's like really good blue belts out there that can kick my butt, and then there's really good black belts that I'm like, I don't really think this guy's that good.
I got you.
But that's just me.
Okay, so with competitions, I'm curious how you go about enlisting. As far as like, is it that you're part of official league, or do you just sign up to any fight that would interest you?
Yeah.
How is that like?
As an amateur, the way it goes is your coach will pretty much be like, hey, we have competitions coming up. Are you interested? And there's ranks in kickboxing. You start at N class, which is you're new, you're a beginner. Then there's C class, B class, and A class. A class is pretty much pros. They get paid pretty well for what they do. It's literally up to you and your coach what class you want to start in. But once you start in that class, you can't go back. You can only go up. So if you start in an N class and then you say after 2 fights, you know what, I'm going to go to a pro level. You go to a pro level, those guys are pretty good, and then you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should go back down. You can't. You're already there. You did a fight. It's recorded that you're a professional. Can't go back. So you just go to a fight. You start as a beginner. You work your way up. You sign up to events that are coming up. You reach out to the promoters. They will reach back to your coach. They'll let the coach know, find an opponent, agree on a certain weight, and then you show up, you get the job done. But once you get to professional leagues, like the UFC, LFA, Bellator, once you sign with that promotion, you're only obligated to fight for that promotion. You can do grappling events, I believe. You can do grappling tournaments like wrestling or jiu-jitsu fights outside of the promotion. But when it comes to fighting, you can only do that with that certain promotion. But that's only when you sign with really big organizations. Like
Gotcha.
I just signed with LFA. I can only fight for LFA unless my contract is done and then I want to be signed to a next league or...
Okay, where is that base? LFA?
LFA is based in the States.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess that goes without saying you definitely intend on going pro.
Oh, yeah. I've been pro for 5 years.
Oh, okay.
Years,
My bad. I thought...
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great, though.
Yeah. I've
Okay.
been
That's
at it for a
definitely
while.
great. Okay.
Got a long road to go, but we're getting there.
Good. That's really cool, man. And so, also, by the way, what do you also fight based on a weight division?
Yes. I fight in middleweight, which is 185 pounds. But there's tons of different weight divisions. You can start at 125 all the way up to 265 pounds. So there's a lot of weight divisions in between. But we always fight by weight. Because weight is a huge advantage. Can you imagine if I'm going to fight you and you're 250 and I'm like 185, you have a bit of an advantage on me, weight-wise. Maybe I'm faster or more smooth or whatever. But it's always by weight and, yeah, pretty much by weight. Because you can have like 20 fights and I have 10 and we can still fight. But the weight has to be the same.
Gotcha. Okay. So next thing that comes to mind too, going back to an earlier question I asked as far as preparing for fights and stuff, what is your approach when it comes to foods?
Personally, I'm a wannabe pescatarian. I say that because I do eat other things, you know what I mean? But I don't eat meat on a daily basis. If I go somewhere and there's something on a menu that I've never had in my life, I'm not against trying it. But on my daily life, I don't eat meat. I think as a fighter, you need to eat pretty clean because you're doing exhausting work on a day-to-day basis. So you need to give your body that fuel. Carbs, really important. Greens, really important. Staying hydrated, incredibly important because you're sweating so much. So eating clean is really good. I think your nutrition should be as important as your training, because you can be training as hard as you want, and then you go home and eat a bowl of cornflakes, and then you don't really have energy for the next session, and then you go to session, you're like, oh, I don't know what happened. I'm so sluggish. I'm so slow. Yeah, man, you have to put good fuel into your body
makes
so
sense.
You can have a good performance. So eating clean is incredibly important. So, you can eat clean in many different ways. You can. I personally don't eat meat, but there's nothing wrong with it. You can eat meat and know how to do it.
Gotcha.
A lot of fried food is not the best.
Yeah, that's definitely no. Yeah.
My weakness is snacking. I love snacking, so I try to have like healthy snacks around me. You know, like fruits and stuff, and peanuts. Really important. But yeah, just eating clean is really, really important.
So you're
just
not
research about it.
You're not necessarily strict with a particular diet and quantities and stuff.
No. When it's like 3 weeks out, I'm really strict on my diet. For me, I don't cut a lot of weight. I walk around about 200, and I fight at 185, and that's not a lot of weight. But when I start camp, I start losing it naturally, and the last 10 pounds is really what you got to be careful of. So there, I'm strict with the carbs. If you need to cut, you do a lot of water intake. You do your hot saunas. You get the sweat out. But for me, I don't need to cut a lot of weight, so I'm kind of free range with what I can eat. But for guys that have to cut a lot of weight, they have to be so strict. Like chicken, broccoli, fish. It's really boring. But listen.
Yeah,
you're putting fuel into your body, and it's for a purpose. You're not here to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Just eat it, get for the next session. That's it.
Correct. It's not there for the comfort.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately.
So I'm curious as well, what is it like teaching, children and adults, and what do you most enjoy?
It's awesome, man. I enjoy it because I learn myself. Like I'm walking around the room and I look at things and I see a student do something that's really, really cool. I'm like, oh, I should implement that. I should do that. And then I see a student making a certain mistake. I'm like, okay, this is why that happens to me. So I'm teaching, but they're teaching me. They don't know it, but I'm learning quite a lot from my students, watching them and understanding the way they think. And they're like, why does this work? Or why does this not work? And then me explaining it, I get an even more in-depth understanding about martial arts, about fighting. So it's incredible, man. It's a trade-off, I would say.
Gotcha. Okay. So my final question is then, I do know that there is the St. Martin Martial Arts Federation. So can you share what are some of the activities and even the goals that you guys have, and what sort of support do you look forward to in receiving as well?
Our goals, mainly, we want to put on events targeted to the kids and teens. We're not at the adult level yet where we want to put on big competitions for the adults, but we just want to grow our teen teams, our kid teams. We want to give them more experience. As you know, we live on an island, and I know all too well that when you have to compete, it's always a plane ticket. It's always a this. You got to go over there, and that's costly.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. For parents that have to buy their shin guards, their gloves, their gis, it's quite a lot. And then you have to buy tickets for yourself and your kid. So whereas in other places, you can just get in your car, drive for a few hours, and you're at the event. So what we're trying to do on St. Martin is trying to create a constant competition to give the kids a reason to want to stick to training. And we try to do it as much as we can. Of course, with COVID, things were incredibly limited. We're trying to do another competition in a couple months. But our goals are mainly to grow our the teens competition experience, so that when we take them to other islands, they're a little bit more experienced than those kids. And when we take them eventually internationally, they're really experienced, and it's not just like a first thing for them. As support, we do it ourselves. It's between myself, Marco London, Melissa Bartfield, Omar Marsham, and we do it all. We plan it all. We order everything we need to. We set everything up, along with our teams, of course, with Henzo Gracie St. Martin and with Situtang Kickboxing St. Martin. We all come together. We set everything up. We tear it down when it needs to be teared down. We do all the matchups. We reach out to all of the different gyms, St. Bart's and the friend side, and I sit down literally hours at night doing the matchups, making sure the right age group is with the right age group and the same weight, experience, and we do it all ourselves. There's not really any support that we're getting from anyone, from the government or anything like that. It would be amazing if we did, and we would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
But as for now, we're pretty much doing it on our own.
Okay. Two other things actually just came to mind. One of them being injuries. Have you ever had any?
Too many.
Yeah, and how do you deal
got
with
injuries
that?
right now.
Yeah, what was it like? Of course, injuries with athletes are like, I know that as well plays a role in the mental training and fortitude. So how is that like for you, dealing with major injuries?
When you're at this level in the sport, you kind of always have little knickknacks and boo-boos and little small aches and stuff. I just did a fight, so it's really intense because you did a fight. You're just kind of like, no, don't worry about it, just go. But training smart is incredibly important. You can go in there and just go die, and then you can go in there and be like, I want to gain skill. I want to do a certain thing a certain way, and I'm big on training skill wise. I don't like getting injured. I don't like my students getting injured, and I'm a big person on training for skill. If I see people sparring hard, I usually step in and be like, what are you doing? Are you trying to break each other? You break him, then you don't have anybody to train with. And how are you going to get better? So I got to take care of you just as much as you got to take care of me. And injuries come and go. You can train around certain injuries, and some of them you really just have to sit on the side and and those are the worst ones, because you want to train so bad, but you can't. And if you do, you just prolong the injury. So, doing your ice baths and massage and heat treatment and all those things are really important. But I think sleep and nutrition are the biggest thing. I think that helps me a lot with my injuries, because I don't stay injured for too long unless it's something really serious. But, that's my take on the injury.
Yeah. So I have a question. This is based on what we kind of talked about off air as well, as far as it relates to the sports and the arts, the fields where particularly parents or society, family, etc. not always too big on when you say, this is what I want. These are the two fields I want to go in. But as a professional,
be a doctor,
yeah, right, or a lawyer, but as a professional athlete and coach, what would you say to anyone considering going full on with sports, but even and persons understanding why it pays, and not just financially, but pays to make it a profession?
I'm gonna look at it from a logistics side of things. You want to be a lawyer, you got to go to school for a certain amount of years. You have to practice for a certain amount of years before you get those big cases. If you get you sign a contract with like a really notable team. You want to be a TV host. You have to do those crappy jobs to build your experience, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it does not work out. And that's with life, with anything in life. I'm sure you had your come up before you got into this beautiful office and this nice setup.
Yep.
I'm sure you started somewhere else before
Definitely.
you got here. So that's with anything. In sport, we said about sticking with something. You stuck with this, and it brought you where you are. So it's the same for sports. If you stick with it and you're dedicated, and, of course there's those people that have the right opportunities at the right moment. Beautiful. Doesn't always work out for everybody. But you got to stick with it, with anything in life. If you stick with it and, you have the self-belief and the determination, and you see an opportunity and you go for it and you just try, I think you can be successful in whatever you choose to do. not only what I'm doing or, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever it is you want to do in life. If you stick with it and you know that this is what I want to do, I don't see why you can't do it.
Gotcha. I appreciate that. So with that, Akeem, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on the program. I wish you much success, man, and congrats.
Thank you, man.
All the
Thank
fights
you.
that you've had so far.
Thank
even
you.
The
Many
losses,
more to come.
Even the losses are wins in the sense of,
They make you better.
Exactly. It makes you better. So I appreciate that.
Thanks for having me on.
Cool.
All right.
So to our viewers and listeners, that was Akeem Lewis right here on the News Behind the News. And do take care and be sure to tune in again tomorrow. Goodbye.